Today we've come to the Isle of Portland to see if we can spot some of the buildings of old Portland in this Eric Ricketts book. So the things we're looking at for today, we're in Easton, which is a village right in the middle of the island. So we're looking for the characteristic Portland stone buildings, so the local stone. A lot of the buildings here are made from stone quarried here on the island. So I think one of these is the first Wesleyan church and the other one is the former Wesleyan chapel. So I think when they outgrew one, they built the other or something like that. So anyway, I'm not sure that's what we're looking at actually. Yeah, that's not what we're looking at. Right, I'm going to cross over. These are probably quite a grand example of what can be done with Portland stone. So the Portland local limestone is a pale sort of greyish yellow limestone that is quite well renowned. A lot of notable buildings in London I think are made from Portland stone quarried here on this island. Anyway, what we've got here is the Wesleyan School, which is the right hand structure in this little panorama in the middle of this page. And then we're standing in the park that I think where the bandstand, which was demolished sometime after 1904, would have been in this middle section here where this octagonal planting bed is now with a big palm tree in it. So that's where the bandstand would have been. There's also a clock tower. I don't think that's actually mentioned in the book, so that might be it might just not have been notable enough for the author to want to talk about it. Over here though, the Jubilee Hall, which looks like it's for sale. Should we buy the Jubilee Hall? So, yes, here in the book on page 121, the Jubilee Hall. So the Jubilee Hall, conceived of course in 1887, the facade is of mixed parentage indeed. A rather splendid arched pedimented classical ordered entrance has above it 3 light Gothic windows with a filled in spandrel above. We can't see, let me just move so you can see that. All crowned with a 2-centered arch. Can we suspect that details from various architect drawings meet here? So the chap who wrote this book was a notable architect and so really knew the language of buildings. So a lot of what he's commented on in this book is about how different bits of architecture were borrowed for these buildings. So let's have a look. So there's the Jubilee Hall pretty much with the view as seen in the book. I think it's probably from a little bit further up. So there we go, the Jubilee Hall. Now I think we head off down this way now, which I think is the street called Straits. So yeah, this street is just called Straits, S-T-R-A-I-T, Straits. So we're actually having trouble finding the stuff that's in the book. I think because the purpose of the book was partly to record things because it was patently obvious they were being demolished and they were being covered up and disposed of. But anyway, so I think what we may end up having to do is just have a little wander around Portland and take a good look at the old cottages. So we're walking down Straits now and we'll walk down to Church Oak and get down to the water and have a little wander down there. So one thing you do notice about the houses here is that a lot of them are constructed of very large blocks of stone, and I think that is because the stone is local. Because it was locally quarried, it doesn't have to be moved very far to be built with here. But then you do find buildings, so some buildings are made from dressed, very rectilinear blocks of stone. Others are made with presumably blocks that and pieces that would have been a bit cheaper to buy, you know, the smaller pieces, the fragments. So as I think I mentioned in another video, now this one is in the book, so this is an example of a very, very tiny cottage with a stone porch, nun's cottage. And yeah, so this piece here, that is just one dwelling there, with just probably one up, one down. Sculptor's cottage, not much bigger. As I think I mentioned in another video, we very nearly came to live on the Isle of Portland. We went nearly all the way through a house purchase, and it fell through at the last minute for various reasons I won't go into, but so we didn't buy that, and then we made an offer on another house, and that was also fell through for a different reason. So obviously it was not to be, but yeah, we very nearly came here to live. So we're going to carry on down here, because down here there's a museum. We can't go in there, I don't think we can go in there with a dog, but there's also the entrance to Church Ope, which is a beach, which is one of actually quite few beaches on the Isle of Portland, because mostly the island is surrounded by cliffs. It is a limestone plateau sticking out into the sea, and for the most part it's cliffs down to the water, so there aren't very many beaches, but Church Ope is one of them, and it's rather nice. We've been there before, so we'll take a look at that. So yeah, this one's been rendered with cement render, and I think that's one of the things that Ricketts was bemoaning in his book, is that a lot of the beautiful stone, so this is natural quarried stone, still got the quarry marks on it and the marks from dressing it, but Ricketts, I think in the book, was bemoaning the fact that a lot of the natural stone and the details were being covered up and rendered, painted over and lost. So yeah, down here there is somewhere the entrance to Church Ope Road, which is not really suitable for vehicles. It's not a river down there, that's a track. Right, well first I'm going to go and see if the museum has got a cafe where we can pick up a pasty or something, and then we'll head down to Church Ope. I don't think we could stop without admiring this crenellated gate. This is the Gatehouse Cottage, and there's more crenellations and castellations and things in there. Castle Keep. Anyway, I'm just going to go and see if they've got any food for sale in here. So apparently not. I was hoping we could pick up a pasty. Last time I was here in Easton, there was a little bakery in the Easton Square that sold hot pasties, and I had one from there and it was awesome. It appears to have closed down now, so we couldn't get a pasty on the way in. It's still early anyway, so I think we'll go down to Church Ope, we'll go down to the beach, we've got a snack, we'll come back and get some food on the way back up. I see the sea. Well, it's quite misty. And there is the remains of a castle here, or a fort of some sort. And we go underneath the archway. There we go. So there's the sea down there. Let's have a look. There's a viewpoint here. We'll see what we can see. It is a bit of a misty day, so I don't know how much we're going to really be able to see across the view, but we'll see if we can make out a few landmarks. We're looking east across Weymouth Bay here. So somewhere over there is probably where we were the other day when we went on that smuggler's walk at Osmington Mills. I think that's probably Osmington Mills over there in between those two hills, or Ringstead, something like that. We may not be looking quite far enough. We might be looking as far as Kimmeridge or something over there, or even Lulworth. And that little beach down there is Church Ope. Beach huts with their own little stone gardens, little stone walls that people have made just to enclose a little bit of space and make their own little front yard. And this is one of very few actual beaches on the island, because as I say, it's mostly cliffs. So we'll head down there and see what it looks like, shall we? Look at the sloes on these bushes here. Won't be long before the sloes are ripe. Down here in the south of England, the sloes often fall off the bushes before the first frost. A lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't pick them till the first frost, but I've found from experience, if you wait until the first frost, the sloes are all gone. They fall off, they ripen and fall off before that happens. Anyway, so we're going to head down these steps. There's quite a lot of steps to get down to the beach. And last time I was here, I saw lizards on the rocks at the side of the steps here. And the funny thing is, the only bit of footage I actually showed was just a real close-up of the lizard on the steps in a video, and somebody recognised the location just from a shot that was like this. Important notice, there is no lifeguard. And beware rock falls. Always a good idea, just to read the signs. It's a danger falling rocks. There are no restrictions on dogs here, so we are allowed to take Eva on the beach. It will not be her favourite kind of beach because there's no digging. These gates are new since I was last here. That's interesting. I wonder if this is locked up at night. Although, you know, high security. Right, here we are. The beach at Church Ope. A few more steps to go down, which means lots of steps on the way back up. That'll be fun. And there's a little spring here, or there would be, but it's dry at the moment. Right, here we are. Eva is just very excited to get on the beach, but like I say, there's nowhere to really dig here. It's these little beach huts, people own or rent these, and they've all built their own little front yards. Limestone pebbles, mostly, with a little bit of chert and other things mixed in. it is a very rocky beach. I think at the lowest of low tides, which is not now, there is some fine gravel and a little bit of sand, but we're here at high tide. So it's just rocks. Oh look, there's a little bit of sand. There's a little bit of sand. Also, it's a bit of sand that gets wet periodically. You can let her off if you want. Well, that's where the diggings are, Eva, so that's your beach. Interesting bit of rock here, so that's what it looks like. A bit of... no, that's actually a flint nodule. I thought that was a piece of petrified wood, but it's not. That's a flint nodule that's just been shattered in half, just been sheared in half. So limestone that's been drilled by boring piddocks. That's probably some sort of cherty material here, and then a big flint nodule. I think we'll just have a little bit of slow TV of the waves on the rocks. So, leaving Church Oak behind, we've now got to head back up the steps up the cliff. I think on the way back up I might do another plant identification dash where I try to identify as many plants as I can in a minute. My previous score was 9. I identified 11 things, but I got 2 wrong, so 11 minus 2 is 9. Let's see if I can beat a score of 9. Well, that plan was somewhat hampered by the fact that that gate we came through, that metal gate, was locked on the way back up. So they've closed that part of the coast path. No obvious notice about why. So we've had to come up the other coast path, southbound, and we'll have to try and find our way back inland that way. Anyway, there's a view of Church Oak from up on the southern side. And actually you can get a good view of the castle ruins up there as well. So, quite a detour to get us back to where we started in Easton. We're going to have to go all the way to Southwell along the coast path and then back. So here we go. Evidence of historic quarrying. These blocks have been quarried and roughly dressed to blocks and then just never moved. The quarry must have shut down. This one's got a look, somebody's even carved a what's that, an architrave sort of thing or something, I don't know. Maybe somebody's done that after the fact, but there was obviously an old quarry here, and presumably if we look down here there might have been some sort of quayside down here where there was a crane and the blocks were lifted off directly onto a barge or a boat. Anyway, now it's returning to nature. What looks like an old water pipe or something up there. Possibly the waste pipe for a building that might have been up on the top of the cliff there at some point. Maybe the workman's shed for the quarry or something. But yeah, this is all quarried here. You can see this, it's just cut into blocks. And then the quarry must have closed down before it was used. Okay, so I think we're going to do our 1 minute plant identification. So here we go, 1 minute starting now. Wild marjoram, brambles, blackberries, red valerian. The thing with the berries there is viburnum, is guelder rose. What else have we got? There's another guelder rose there. That's a scabious. We've got wild rose, dog rose. We've got ivy. Down here, oh, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to play safe and not identify that one. Oh, I'm not doing very well here. There's not so much diversity. Blackthorn. I see blackthorn there. How much time have I got left? 14 seconds. That is cow parsley, I think. No, it's wild carrot. Oh, time up. Not so good that time. I picked a spot where, well, there was a bit of diversity, but I just kind of got myself in a loop and I was looking for things I probably knew. I've just seen down there's some sunspurge, honeysuckle. Too late now. I don't know how well I did there, but I don't think that was even 9 species. So not as good as my last score, even though my last score had some mistakes in it. Right, well that goes up. Right, that's the path that goes back up to the road, but this looks interesting here. So I'm just going to have a quick gander up here. It's good actually, we wouldn't have had the chance to do this if we hadn't have been diverted by the closed footpath. So I am glad that we had this serendipitous detour. It is a bit up and down and the ground is very rough. There we go, there's a huge quarry there. Great big cutting into the rock. In fact, we might get a better view of it up there. Don't follow me, I'm just going to go up to the top here. Just going to take my bag off. I'll just leave that there. A little bit treacherous going up here. Just ever so slightly too steep for a loose surface. But the view from the top should be the reward. Okay, here we go. Oh. So, an enormous quarried gorge. Can't see into it really because of all the trees. So one thing with walking on Portland as there really isn't very much shade. It's not a baking hot day, slightly overcast. Oh, there's some cloud blocking out the sun, but it's still quite warm. We've got water for doggo and it's not even lunchtime yet, so won't be out here in the hottest part of the day. But yeah, okay, so I think from up here we're going to get an even better view of Church Ope. There we go. Okay, well, we could go and investigate what that pipe is, but the path goes this way, so not today. Oh, that was quite the climb, but I think we're back up at the road now. Oh. Okay. Right. Portland Bill is off down that way somewhere. I think I can just about see the top of the lighthouse. Maybe. Maybe not. This sounds like it might be a working quarry off to my left here. I can't see down there, but maybe if I lift the camera up, maybe you can. Did you see anything? So it has for a long time struck me as a little bit strange that Portland is not a huge island, and for centuries they've been carving it up into cubes and selling it to the rest of the world. It's a wonder there's any of it left. But there you go. When the quarries close, they very often get turned into nature reserves. There's one of them that's been turned into a sculpture park. And there are areas of Portland that are reserved for future quarrying. So they've got limestone reserves, and then they've got bits that are scheduled for development, for building. So not all of the island will eventually be cut up into cubes and sold. So we'll just have a look here. This is a site of what used to be a quarry, but is now derelict. And so this is just a kind of nature reserve at the moment. Just a big hole in the ground where they dug out a load of limestone. The porous nature of the limestone does mean that these things don't fill up and become lakes. So this is Pennsylvania Castle, which is now a kind of estate and hotel and venue for events and such. There we go, that's in the book. Can't see very much of it through the trees. I think we'd have to come in here in winter if we want to really enjoy the architecture. It is viewing by appointment only, so we can't just wander in there and have a look. But you get the idea. It's a building that has lots of architectural references to castles, even though it's probably not ever been used as a defensive structure. So one interesting architectural feature on a lot of the very much smaller stone cottages is these little porches, and these are here for a reason. So these houses are so small that the front door opens directly into one of the rooms. There's no hallway, and so, well, for the larger houses might have a hallway, but the smaller cottages, that front door opens directly into the house, into one of the rooms. So these stone porches would just shelter the front door from the elements, just a little bit. The weather is quite nice at the moment, but you can imagine in the depths of winter with the wind howling down this street and the rain driving. I mean, we are out at sea essentially on a small island. These porches would have been essential in just not allowing rain and wind to blow directly into the house when they open the door to go in. So quite a grand looking house across the road here, but it's not the house I'm interested in. It's this wall here. Well, actually there's the outline of a building that is no longer in existence, but this wall is partly composed of fossil ammonites, large fossil ammonites, presumably out of the quarries. It is limestone, it's Jurassic limestone, so that's probably where those came from. A lot of the buildings here have got a large ammonite above the door or set into the wall, so I assume when they were quarrying the limestone that would be a thing they found from time to time. So according to Eric Ricketts, Delhi Lane is nice. From its southern end we can glimpse the remaining gable of the Girt House in Wakeham. Anyway, this is Delhi Lane. We're also told to look out for number 23, which apparently is a very good example of the type. I think some of these have been rebuilt, but apparently from the southern end you can see the remaining gable of Wakeham House, the Girt House in Wakeham. I'm not sure whether we're going to see that today. No, in fact I suspect that's probably gone because there's been a big development down there. So I think that's probably as far as we go. So this is the house number 23, double fronted, 3 stories, early 19th century, is noted in the lane, and it could be yours. It's for sale. So a lot of the stuff that's in this book was in danger of being demolished or renovated or replaced when this book was written. So things have changed. There are still some quite old buildings here though. But I think that's probably, for today's trip anyway, that's as far as we're going to explore this book. So thanks for joining us on what was supposed to be an architectural tour of Portland, but turned out to be just more of a ramble and a bit aimless. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.